Nikolai is a highly skilled research engineer working on the development of new materials and catalysts. His work in the field in his native Russia came to the attention of a major petrochemical company. The company had attempted to recruit in Belgium. Nikolai was handed a lifetime contract, but his residence permit fails to meet his and his employer's needs.
I
have a lifetime contract with Total, but my papers are only valid for 1 year. Every year I have to renew them. I am allowed to travel freely within the EU, but to travel to the UK, I need a visa. The permit allows me to work in Belgium, but nowhere else.
Daniel Adrians is the director of the Liège City Council and is only too aware of cases like Nikolai. To speed up the red tape, the council is in direct contact with universities and companies that bring in talent from outside the EU.
From the moment the residence permit is issued by the Walloon region, which takes around a month, we deal directly with the university or company. The files are put into the computer and stored, and that allows us to legislate directly with the immigration department.
Jean-San worked all over the world before arriving in Belgium. He's a consultant for Oracle. He's a rare commodity in Europe and as such should enjoy all the benefits of a high-ranking and valued employee. Yet he's forced to leave his family back home in India.
If I am on a project and if my work permit is valid only for a year, then even my employer cannot, involve me in a long-term project because they are not sure what will happen after 1 year. So my family is still based in Bombay in India. I have not brought them mainly because even though I live here almost 6 years now, since I was never sure that what will happen because every year I had to wait for my work permit or resident card renewal.
The families of highly skilled workers often have to trawl through reams and reams of red tape. Birth certificates, marriage certificates, references, medical records and health insurance. It's a cumbersome procedure.
When the police get involved, they check to see if the accommodation is adequate. It's a long and difficult process. After producing all the documentation, a wife or husband will receive a registration certificate, which allows a 9-month stay in Belgium, but under no circumstances may they leave the territory.
The Civil Liberties Committee of the European Parliament wants the introduction of the blue card, which they believe has several advantages.
The positive thing about this is that you have one entrance admission into the EU and not 27 different entrance admissions, first of all. Second of all, we give them the mobility to move freely within the European Union. This is something they do not have at the moment. And the third point is that member states already definitely need. Take my country, Germany, for example. We have 95,000 open places for engineers.
The card won't be open to everyone. One would need an employment contract, be a college graduate, or have at least 5 years' experience in a professional environment. The card would be valid for up to 4 years and renewable. After 18 months, the cardholder and family will be allowed to move to another member state and be eligible for EU residency after 5 years. For the Belgian Minister of Immigration, the card is good news. Indeed, it will reunite families separated by borders and red tape.
Under the blue card, keeping families together is a right. What's new is that someone who comes to Belgium to join their spouse will be allowed to work. This is something new, with no obligation to integrate.
Umesh Shenoy is a software consultant for the automotive trade. He fears for his pension contributions if he goes home.
The pension which I pay out as part of working here in Belgium is primarily useful if I live here. But if I plan to move back to India, then I can't re-expatriate the pension funds back to India. I checked this with the Indian embassy and they say that there is some talks going on which will allow this to happen in the future, but as it stands now, that's not possible.
As well as an above-average salary, these immigrants obtain social rights as citizens. However, pensions upon return to the country of origin are based on bilateral agreements. For unions in Europe, these social issues must be addressed.
We have currently big debates on, let's say, how to, if there's mobile workers within the EU that are all EU citizens, how to deal with acquired rights in social security and especially pensions. And that we have not yet solved properly. So it will be even more difficult for migrants coming from outside the EU.
The needs of skilled workers and the bureaucracy involved varies from state to state, and therefore difficult for the French presidency to harmonise.
On nous avait dit sur cette directive carte bleue.
We were told this blue card directive would be impossible to realise. You remember that there were 200 reservations in early July.
Nous sommes en réalité aujourd'hui quasiment d'accord.
Now we are quite close to an agreement on nearly all the issues related to the blue card. The Czechs still have an issue, but that's an internal matter.
The Czech government agrees in principle with the blue card, and political agreement on the issue is expected towards the end of November.
We have some doubts that, look, worker from Africa or elsewhere, based on the blue card, would be able to enter the market anywhere in the European Union, while the Czechs and others are still don't have the guarantee to go to the labour market in some EU countries.
The directive is expected to come into force in 2011 and will be valid across the EU, except in Britain, Denmark and the Republic of Ireland. The British have already established their own procedures. However, politicians are concerned that this kind of selective immigration skims the cream from the top of the bottle. Good conditions for skilled workers in affluent Europe will create a brain drain from developing countries.
We will monitor the arrival of workers in sensitive areas, such as health and education. The European Parliament is well aware of how important these individuals are to their own country and how much they are needed back home.
The card is a step towards easing the difficulties experienced by legal immigrants. However, each member state will still determine the number of skilled workers it's prepared to accept.